Well, one thing is absolutely certain. Anthony Volpe didn't want to go home.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. And this episode is brought to you by our good friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on the Instagrams. Well, there was a period of time tonight that I really thought this was going to be the wrap up the World Series podcast. And admit it, folks, admit it. When Freddie Freeman homered in the first inning, which is what he likes to do, be honest, you thought the game was over. You thought once again, Freeman homered in the first, took the wind out of the sails at Yankee Stadium, and there you go. And after two innings, the Yankees threatened in the first inning, got runners at second and third. Stanton grounded out. And then everybody in their moose was getting on base in the second inning with Ben Casparius. Is that Ben Casparius? Forgive me, he's pitched 7 major league games. Ben Casparius, Connecticut native like me, got a ground out that scored Volpe that made it 2-1. But despite all that base running, the Yankees only pushed one run across. And Otani, Betts, and Freeman were coming up. I thought this game was over. I just thought, based on what we had seen, nothing. And Daniel Hudson, lest we forget, Daniel Hudson struck out Juan Soto to start the third. And Aaron Judge, who has been a big pile of nothing this whole series, was coming up. I thought, you thought, we all thought he was going to make it out. But instead, he got hit. And Josh Chisholm got a hit. But then Stanton walked and Rizzo popped up. So now, once again, you had lots of traffic on the base paths. And even though you had the bases loaded, you had Anthony Volpe up. And at that moment, nobody, I want to see a timestamp that said you thought Anthony Volpe was going to be the person who could potentially turn this World Series around. A 2-out grand slam. The 2-out grand slam for this, which will be known as the Anthony Volpe game. Now, what that did is it gave the Yankees a 5-2 lead. The heroes after, and Volpe had a fabulous game. Obviously, he hit the grand slam. He also legged out a double and wound up stealing 2 bases. And, he wound up scoring 3 runs and causing a lot of havoc. Okay. And he was in the middle of the 4-run third and the 5-run eighth inning. But with that in mind, the big Yankee heroes in so many ways are Clay Holmes, Mark Leiter Jr., and Luke Weaver. Because those 3 guys combined for, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3 and a third innings of no hit, 1 walk baseball. Those 3 pitchers, the often maligned Clay Holmes, the new to the party Mark Leiter Jr., and Luke Weaver, who came in the 7th. I saw there were some people complaining, why are you bringing Luke Weaver in the 7th on Twitter or whatever it's called now. I 100% understood why Aaron Boone did. He didn't have time to mess around. It was, lest we forget, a still a close game. People are going to look at the final score and say, oh, the Yankees woke up and it was a blowout. But it was 5-4 heading into the bottom of the sixth. 5-4. And they had already burnt through Hill, and Holmes, the law firm of Hill, and Holmes. And they'd burnt through all of them. And you still had the likes of Ohtani and Betts and Freeman, all of them just waiting in the wings. And even when Austin Wells hit the home run off of Knack, Edman walked, and you had Ohtani, Betts, and potentially Freeman coming up in the seventh. And give Leiter credit, with Edman stealing second and Ohtani, who is clearly not full strength, strikes out on a full count. If Ohtani walks, you've got runners on first and second with one out, with Betts and Freeman coming up. Instead, he struck out Mark Leiter. Now, I do have to say, I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite here, because I did say, what are you doing pulling Leiter? Again, I'm not rooting for the Yankees, but I enjoy baseball. And bringing in Weaver there, I did feel it as it happened. I thought, well, geez, the guy just freaking got Ohtani out. Maybe with a little momentum, he could get Betts out. But in retrospect, and we'll talk about this later because narratives are written in retrospect, Boone was like, if Mookie Betts lets up a home run, get homers off of Leiter here, that's it. You got to bring in your best. You can't worry about the save. You can't worry about, well, he pitches the eighth, he pitches the ninth. So he brings in Weaver. Weaver strikes out Betts. He gets Freeman to fly out. He strikes out Teoscar Hernandez. He strikes out Max Muncy. He's brilliant. Weaver was nothing short of brilliant. But was he going to throw a 2 1/3 inning save? Well, that's when Volpe once again came to the rescue. Brent Honeywell Jr. didn't have his best night, and he essentially was a sacrificial lamb. And I will talk a little bit more about the Dodgers and the pitching in the second segment. Honeywell was basically out there to be a sacrificial lamb. Lest we forget, he got the first out on one pitch. He got Anthony Rizzo out on one pitch. But then Volpe legged out the double. Wells walked, he had the double steal, and then, one run came in, and then Torres homered, and then basically was clear. Just stay out there, Honeywell. You got it. This is the equivalent of bringing in an infielder to pitch. But what that did do for the Yankees is it allowed him to lift Weaver and pitch Tim Meza, who got a 1-2-3 inning, but there was zero pressure on Tim Meza. And Weaver, while he did throw a bunch of pitches, he wound up throwing 21 pitches, but it's not inconceivable that you can use Weaver in game 5 later tonight. But look, Volpe is the hero of the game. There's no getting around it. That grand slam, in so many ways, saved face for the Yankees. I do not think they're going to win the last 4 games, but they do have a couple of things going in their favor. And if this even gets back to Los Angeles, you don't have the fate of just a clear sweep, the humiliation of a clear sweep. Now they've won at least one game. They showed some guts. They were staring down a game of which Freeman homered and put them behind a 2-run deficit before they even came to bat. The 2-out grand slam that flipped the script, and then the relief job that preserved it, at least showed the Yankees had some fight. Now, Judge wound up getting on base twice and getting a hit, and he wound up driving in a run. Torres hit the garbage time home run. Wells hit the home run, which was critical because it gave him a little bit of wiggle room. And, there were some other players who had some decent games. Not a great showing by Stanton, who looked a little bit lost today. Ohtani looks, I mean, you saw him when he was running, he's holding his shoulder in. He's clear, and if this were the regular season, of course, he'd be on the DL. Freeman, of course, is playing at a different level, and Will Smith homered, and Tommy Edman got on base a couple of times and scored. So there were some good things happening there. But for the Yankees, this is what makes it a critical victory for them. They are sending Cole to the mound. Remember when this series started? I said the biggest advantage the Yankees had over the Dodgers, because I picked the Yankees to win in 7. We'll get to that a little bit later. Was they said they're the only team that has a healthy ace at this point. Yes, I know he was injured for the first third of the season, but he's pretty much at regular strength right now. And that's why I thought it was insane that they pulled him so early in game 1. Well, now you're handing the ace back the ball. You're handing him the ball again. And if the offense started to find a little bit of its rhythm and you have Cole on the mound, all of a sudden the Yankees have the advantage over Los Angeles in game 5. And if it goes to game 6, a game that nobody wanted, nobody thought was ever going to happen if you lived in LA, and I do live in Los Angeles County, and everyone was talking about, wow, talk about the parade today. Well, now they're going to have to put the parade on hold. I was talking about how I was going to make plans on this Friday because I didn't have a ball game to watch. Maybe I will. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the perils of a bullpen game and why, in many ways, Dave Roberts played it as well as you could in an 11-4 final. Hey, let's hear from Prize Picks. It's the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to us all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. And Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users today, and you can get on the action in over 30 states, including Florida, Texas, Georgia, and right here in California. PrizePicks also offers weekly projections that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% or even more value for your lineups. So here's what you got to do. You got to download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Let me repeat that. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. I've been talking like a broken record about the perils of a bullpen game. And if you run into a bullpen game because of an injury or because of emergency, that's one thing. But it is perilous if you bank on it. If it's something that's part of your strategy because you don't have enough starting pitchers, which, by the way, is currently the pickle that the Dodgers find themselves in right now. They don't have enough pitching, so they have to mix and match. Well, the one thing that should make Dodger fans feel at least okay about their pitching situation tomorrow is this. They are going to be pitching Jack Flaherty. Now, Flaherty pitched very well in game 1, matched Cole inning for inning until letting up the Stanton homer, pitched very well in his first game against the New York Mets, and got clobbered in his second game against the Mets. But truth be told, it turns out he was under the weather, so he wasn't at full strength that day. So if you can expect Flaherty to give you 4 or 5 innings, again, That's where we are right now. That is a great start at this point. If he give you 5 innings, you're doing jumping jacks. But take a look at what the Dodgers didn't do. They didn't use Gratterall. They didn't use Bonda. They didn't use Brazier. They didn't use Kopech. They didn't use Vesia. They didn't use Trinan. That's 6 relievers that they did not use. 6 quality relievers who have been keys. Granted, Trinan had a little bit of issues in this series, but Kopech is obviously super talented. He led up the garbage time home run. Vesia has been great. Gratterall has shown he can throw fire up there. Brazier, he's only thrown an inning so far. Bonda has not let up a run in 3 appearances. These are all pitchers that are going to be totally rested. If they need to go 5, 6 outs, they can. And the more you squeeze out of Flaherty, if you get 3, 4, 5, even 6 innings, if he pitches into the 6th like he did in Game 1, you have so many quality pitchers that you could pull out from if you're Dave Roberts and not have to worry about them throwing an inning. And that is thanks to Landon Knack. Landon Knack gave them 4 innings out of the bullpen. 4. Remember when pitchers used to do that? That used to be called a long man. That's exactly what Landon, I almost called him Brandon Lack, but it's Landon Knack. I'm sorry, Mr. Knack. He threw 4 innings. He only let up the Wells home run. That was basically his only blemish on his resume. And friend of the podcast, Craig Calcaterra, posted on Twitter or whatever it's called now, why is Landon Knack still out there for his 4th inning? It's for this exact reason. In the bullpen game, the Dodgers only used 4 pitchers, and none of them are going to be pitching tomorrow. And here's the other thing to keep in mind. They wheeled out Daniel Hudson, who I mentioned before was 1 out away from getting out of that 3rd inning scoreless, and he wound up letting up the grand slam to Volpe. And Brent Honeywell was out there basically to be a piñata, basically have the Yankees smack him around so they didn't have to go to the bullpen again. And that is exactly what those 2 did. So of the 11 runs that the Yankees scored, 9 of them were off of pitchers who they're not going to see tomorrow. 9 of them. There were 2 innings where the Yankees offense exploded. And they are not going to be in a situation like they had against Honeywell, where if a pitcher starts to get into a bad place, that they'll just have to finish out the inning. They have enough bullets in their gun. The key is Flaherty. Do what he did in Game 1 and match Cole inning for inning, and then you turn to a bullpen game. Because the Yankees wound up getting an inning out of 3rd out of Holmes, an inning and a 3rd out of Weaver. Hill pitched faced 2/3 of it. The Yankees wound up using most of their high quality relievers. So Knack and Honeywell taking the brunt for 5 innings allows the Dodgers to line everything up. I don't know what to do about Ohtani. Now, it's a horrifying thought to maybe say, should they play him? I mean, if he's grabbing his shoulder, do you do something like I don't know, you start Kiki Hernandez or maybe start, Tommy, start Edmund start Edmund in the outfield. You move Freddie Freeman to the DH and you have Muncy playing first and Kiki Hernandez playing third. I mean, if Ohtani is not at full strength and you have at least a game to play with, do you do that? Or do you think Shohei Ohtani at 60 or 70% is just better than everyone else? I mean, obviously you have to play him, but when you see a man and he's running basically holding his arm in, at some point you have to start asking the question, are they better off having someone at full strength? Give the superstar, 1 day or, if they win the rest of the World Series, the entire offseason to get himself back on track. But I mean, I obviously you have to plan, but you kind of have to look around and say, gee whiz, he's not having a great World Series. He's not. He has 2 hits. He has 1 double. His OPS is 478. He's batting 133. He's slugging 200. This is not Otani full strength. And, right now, uh, obviously Freddie Freeman, who has driven in 10 runs in 4 games, has 4 homers in 4 games, has an OPS over 1.5, and Tommy Edman has an OPS of 1.2. They're picking up the slack. But you can't have your freaking superstar holding his arm in. So tomorrow is going to be interesting because if Gerrit Cole pitches like the ace we know he can be, there is a real scenario where this series goes back to Los Angeles. And if it goes back to Los Angeles, you have Yamamoto will be pitching for LA. And I'm guessing it would be Rodon. It'd probably be Rodon pitching, or maybe, who knows, maybe they'll start Nestor Cortez. They love pitching him. Rodon will pitch game 6. Now, that is a huge advantage for the Dodgers, of course, if it's Yamamoto versus Rodon, but you never know. Yamamoto can have a bad game. He's had a few. He didn't pitch particularly well in his start against the Mets. He didn't pitch particularly well in his start against San Diego. He could have a bad start in him. Hell, Corey Kluber was pitching like an ace in 2016, and he wound up having a bad start in the final game in 2016. Great pitchers can have a bad game. And then if that pushes to a game 7, oh boy. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it could potentially happen. And if it does happen, there's going to be all sorts of reversing of the narratives. And when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about that because narratives and points of view are all written in retrospect. Hey, let's hear from our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to get your baseball tickets, and I should know. I use it to get tickets for Game 6 of the NLCS, and it was so easy, so convenient, and I got great, great deals. It's an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices and views for the seats, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Hey, who knows? Maybe the World Series will be extended for another day. And if it happens, you better get yourself onto Game Time. You could save more with exclusive in-app deals using flash deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. You get seat views, a panoramic view of the seat in the app before you buy, and the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest prices, they're guaranteed. I want to share you a couple of things that I got on both on Twitter and the YouTube comments. I had mentioned the other day that there was that Walker Buehler was a beatable pitcher. They was sitting there. There was a possibility he could be beaten. I don't think that was a really controversial statement, but Boogie 23 here says, "How can you say Buehler is a beatable pitcher? Did you see what he did to the Mets?" And he talked about how he has such a great postseason history. Yeah, I've watched all the postseason games. I'm well aware. I know I live in Los Angeles County. I know who Walker Buehler is. Okay, and I know that he has had some great games in the past. He missed all of 2023, and he pitched well the final month of the season to lower his ERA to 5.38. And no, I don't look at win losses. I don't think they're a metric of much of anything. It was worth noting he's a 1-6 record with an ERA over 5. And in his start against San Diego, he let up 6 runs in 5 innings. So, yeah, I know he pitched 4 shutout innings against the Mets. I saw that. I watched the game. And I know in the past he's pitched quite well. He later went on to remind me of the fact that he has a great World Series record, but a World Series record dating back to 2020 and 2018 is really not that relevant for baseball today. So, yeah, I thought a pitcher who's had some success, but also had some that he had to reduce the ERA down to 5.38. I didn't look at him as if I was seeing John Smoltz circa 1996. Then another one, this was Alonde Grange 9703. This was after the Yankees fell 3-0. How could anyone with any baseball knowledge pick the Yanks over the Dodgers? Where I'm actually going to try to pull up the rest of that darling quote. By the way, I'm pulling for the Yankees. There are 4 other teams in the National League that would have done the same thing to them. I'll tell you why I'm picking someone who I'd like to think has a little bit of knowledge pick the Yanks over the Dodgers because, as I said before, Cole was the one legit healthy ace between the two of them, and I thought they were 2 evenly matched teams. And also keep this in mind. If the exact same thing happened in games 2, 3, and 4 is what happened in real life, and one pitch was different, one pitch to Freddie Freeman wasn't a pumpkin down the middle of the lower middle part of the plate, which is exactly where Freeman is going to hit a home run. If he popped up that pitch, if he grounded out, if he was a little slow on it, if he was a little late on it. Let's say that ball died at the warning track for an out. One pitch different. This is a 2-2 series with Gerrit Cole on the mound, and suddenly all the momentum is on the Yankees to win it. These are 2 evenly matched teams. When you make a prediction before you're telling what your opinion, what you think might happen. What was this? Londe Grange 9703 is doing is seeing what happened and putting that narrative in retrospect. It's like, how could you have made that prediction? Well, because it was a prediction. I didn't have the knowledge of what happened after 3 games. And oh, by the way, the Yankees, for a team down 3-1, are in a very good position to win game 5, as I just mentioned. LA is as well, but they're both evenly matched teams that have some issues with their starting pitching. Yankees have more issues with starting pitching than the Dodgers. You know how I know that? The Yankees don't have scheduled 2 bullpen games, or at least 1. They both have good pitchers in their bullpen. You can argue the Dodgers have more, and both of them have potentially explosive lineups. We've seen the Dodgers explode a couple times, and today we saw the Yankees explode, and they still haven't had Judge. If Judge goes bananas, well, then there you go. And by the way, if you can show me where you time stamped saying that you knew that Aaron Judge was going to fall on his face through this World Series the way he did for the first 3 games, send it to me. I don't recall a lot of people making that prediction. Someone was talking because the talk about the Red Sox coming back from 3-0. Someone was going on saying that was foreseeable because the personalities on the team and Ramirez and Ortiz and all that. That is the ultimate story written in retrospect, because if you read what was being written, and I was in New York in 2004. I was 32 years old. And all the storylines from both the Boston papers, the New York papers, the national press, after 3 games to 0, the Red Sox lost 19-8 at home. They were starting Derek Lowe in game 4, and the entire narrative was the Ramirez was a phony. The team was a bunch of phonies. They were sloppy. The Yankees were class. The Red Sox were a bunch of slobs. And you need that discipline, that class of the Yankees to win and blah, 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 blah. And then when game 7 rolled around, it was like, oh, the Red Sox were loose and the Yankees were too tight. The narrative is written in retrospect. And this person was trying to 2004 explain me about this, was saying, well, Lowe was a good pitcher. That people could have expected that. Lowe pitched his way out of the rotation. He was the bullpen. The only reason why he started was that Wakefield pitched a bunch of innings in game 3 to save the bullpen. The fact that Lowe was starting game 4 was one of the reasons why it would look like they were dead in the water. And spare me the talk of the Kevin Millar speech. We all know the Kevin Millar speech. Oh, don't let us win this because we'll win. We all know that he gave that speech to Dan Shaughnessy. It became like he became the great predictor of the event. I guarantee you, every team that's been down by in a series has had someone making that rah St. Crispin Day Braveheart speech to the team. What are they supposed to do? Come to the game? Say, oh, we suck. We're going to lose. I guarantee you, in '89, when the A's were clobbering the Giants in the Earthquake series, there was someone on the Giants saying, we're going to win this thing. We're going to pull this out. But they didn't. Look, we hear about like the Jason Hayward speech. Like, oh, he gave a big speech to the Cubs during the rain delay, and they won. Well, if Cleveland won, we would have heard that Mike Napoli or someone made a speech like that. Those are all stories and narratives that are told in retrospect. We don't know about this series yet. Right now, the Yankees are either going to be the 2004 Red Sox, the 1999 Mets, or the 1970 Reds. Let me explain. Obviously, the 2004 Red Sox were down 3-bagel. Rivera on the mound. The Reaper was about to destroy them, and they had the most storied comeback in the history of postseason baseball. And if they complete that and win in Chavez Ravine, they will be mentioned in the same breath as them. The 1999 Mets were down 3-0 to the Braves. They eked out a win in game 4, had the wild win in the rain in game 5 that ended on the Robin Ventura walk-off grand slam single, and then lost the heartbreaking game 6. The Braves wound up winning it anyway. And the heartbreaking for Mets fans, extra inning game 6 that ended on a bases-loaded walk to Andrew Jones. Met fans still remember that series and that team fondly, even though the heartbreak was real for the final game. And then there's the 1970 Reds, who faced off against a dynamic Baltimore Orioles team. It looked like an even matched going into the World Series, but the Orioles pitching, the defense of Brooks Robinson and the power of Brooks Robinson put the Orioles up 3-0 on Cincinnati, and Cincinnati eked out a win to avoid the sweep, but the Orioles won in the final game anyway. So the Yankees are going to be in one of those 3 categories. They lose in game 5, and all game 4 is a saving face. Hey, at least they weren't swept. They lose in game 6, said, oh my God, they showed a lot of guts to push it back to the other team's home field, but they lost anyway. Or, oh my God, they did it. I don't know which one will be yet, and neither do you. But the future and the reputation of both of these teams, we will start to see in less than 24 hours. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Praising the Anthony Volpe game, showing the perils of a bullpen game, and wondering if Gerrit Cole can push this team to legendary status. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.